Welcome to Southwest Desert, where adventure meets the arid beauty of the American Southwest. Join us as we explore the rugged landscapes, uncover hidden historical gems, and dive deep into the rich legends and culture of this iconic region. Subscribe now and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on our latest desert adventures. Please leave a like or comment. This is very helpful. Let's journey together into the heart of the Southwest Desert. Picture this. It's the dead of night along the Rio Grande in August 1822. Two American traders sleep peacefully by their campfire, unaware that Navajo warriors watch them silently from a nearby hill. What happens next will haunt both nations for generations, not because of the violence itself, but because of what comes after. Sometimes, the most devastating tragedies aren't born from hatred, but from a single, terrible mistake. This is the story of the Coles Massacre, a forgotten chapter that almost stayed buried forever, if not for a chance encounter in a Missouri library and one historian's decade-long obsession. Our story begins in the Boonville Public Library in Missouri. A historian researching the Santa Fe Trail was deep in his work when fate intervened, a young man with a burning question. Boonville sits on the Missouri River, directly across from where Old Franklin once stood, the launching point of the legendary Santa Fe Trail. The young man was a local history enthusiast, directed by the librarian who mentioned this visitor was from New Mexico. He carried fragments of a story passed down through local families about two men named Stephen Cole, an uncle and nephew who shared the same name, both members of a prominent Boonville pioneer family. According to his account, Captain Stephen Cole and his young nephew had ventured to New Mexico to trade in 1822, just 1 year after William Becknell blazed the Santa Fe Trail. Somewhere along the Rio Grande, both Coles had met their deaths at Indian hands. The historian was stunned. Here was a story that should have been front-page news: the killing of two Americans, likely the first to die by Indian attack in New Mexico. In 1822, there were precious few Americans in the Southwest, making their deaths historically significant. Yet, this incident had somehow escaped his extensive knowledge. Intrigued, the historian promised to investigate. What he didn't know was that this casual promise would consume nearly a decade of his life. The Santa Fe Trail in 1822 was barely a year old, and American trading in Mexican territory was revolutionary. The Mexican War of Independence had just ended, opening new commercial possibilities impossible under Spanish rule. That year, 3 trading parties departed from Old Franklin. The first was led by William Becknell himself. The second consisted of about 15 men under Colonel Benjamin Cooper, planning to head for Taos. The third was led by John Heath. On the Kansas plains, Heath's party encountered Becknell's group, and they joined forces for Santa Fe. The Coles likely traveled with this combined party since Cooper's men were bound for Taos. But none of these expeditions kept detailed rosters. The names and stories of participants were lost to informal frontier record-keeping. Upon reaching Santa Fe successfully, Captain Stephen Cole and his nephew made a decision that marked them as true innovators. They assembled their own independent outfit and struck out alone down the Rio Grande. Their exact destination remains unknown, but the historians speculated they were testing trade possibilities in El Paso and Chihuahua. This was visionary thinking. Within years, Americans would routinely follow what became the Chihuahua Trail. But in 1822, this was uncharted territory. The Coles were genuine pioneers. After several days traveling down the Rio Grande, they camped on the river's shore below Albuquerque. It was August, summer heat bearing down on the high desert. Across the water, they could see a small village. What they couldn't see were the eyes watching them. As evening fell, a Navajo war party positioned themselves on a nearby hill, observing the two Americans undetected. In the gathering dusk, the warriors made a crucial and tragic assumption. They believed the men below were Spanish. This wasn't mere prejudice, but the result of ongoing warfare. The Navajos were actively at war with Spanish colonial forces. To these warriors, two men camping by the Rio Grande appeared to be Spanish travelers, legitimate targets in their ongoing struggle. The war party waited as the Coles settled in for the night, completely unaware of the mortal danger gathering around them. In the middle of the night, when sleep was deepest, the Navajo warriors struck. They entered the camp silently and killed both Stephen Coles, evidently while the men slept. It was swift, efficient, and, as the warriors believed, justified by their war with Spanish forces. But then came the moment that transformed this from simple warfare into something tragic and complicated. As the Navajos examined their victims' possessions, they discovered equipment distinctly foreign to their experience. Long rifles of a type they'd never seen among Spanish forces. Strange gear that spoke of different origins, different people entirely. The horrible realization crashed over them. These were not Spanish enemies, but Americans. What happened next reveals something profound about Navajo culture. The mistake, according to the account that finally surfaced, filled them with grief. Unlike their treatment of Spanish enemies, the Navajos did not strip the bodies. They left them with dignity, even leaving behind a portion of their baggage, a gesture of respect for men they now realized were not their enemies. Later, in a conversation with an American gentleman conducted through an interpreter, the Navajo warriors sought to explain their actions and express their profound regret. They described their feelings of sorrow over the error they had made. The few Americans they had encountered, they said, had always treated them kindly. They viewed Americans as a good and brave nation against whom they held no enmity. The realization that they had killed their friends, for that is how they viewed Americans, left them mortified. They had ridden away from the death scene carrying not triumph, but genuine anguish. Meanwhile, our historian found himself obsessed with uncovering the complete story. For nearly 10 years, he searched through archives, newspaper collections, and frontier records, looking for any mention of the Coles' fate. The breakthrough finally came in the Missouri Intelligencer on April 10, 1824, nearly 2 years after the deaths. This frontier newspaper had obtained the complete story, including the remarkable details of the Navajo warriors' response to their mistake. The newspaper didn't merely report facts. It offered editorial commentary that revealed the profound impact this story had on contemporary readers. The editor concluded, "This attitude of the Navajos shows a nobleness of mind, a respect for our national character, and a strong attachment to the principles of justice." Back on the Missouri frontier, news of the Coles' deaths created an outpouring of grief that swept through pioneer communities. Captain Stephen Cole was eulogized as a natural leader of men, someone who embodied the adventurous spirit pushing American civilization westward. He was remembered as one who loved wild adventure, but tragically, it was precisely that thirst for adventure that led to his untimely death. The incident reveals the sophisticated understanding that Native American tribes had of different European American groups. The Navajos clearly distinguished between Spanish colonial forces, with whom they were at war, and American traders, whom they viewed favorably based on previous peaceful interactions. Perhaps most remarkably, the story demonstrates a moral framework that transcended brutal frontier warfare realities. The Navajo warriors' genuine grief, their respectful treatment of the bodies, and their later efforts to explain and apologize through interpreters reveal a complex ethical system that recognized the difference between legitimate warfare and tragic error. For our historian in the Boonville Library, discovering the Missouri Intelligencer account finally provided the missing pieces of a puzzle that had haunted him for a decade. The casual question from a young history enthusiast, had evolved into a full historical investigation, ultimately recovering a forgotten chapter of frontier history. The story reminds us that the American frontier was far more complex than simple narratives of conflict might suggest. It was a place where mistakes had deadly consequences, where different cultures struggled to understand each other, and where, occasionally, the aftermath of tragedy revealed the better angels of human nature. Join my Patreon community and discover my art print products on my website in the links provided in my description and link above. Also, if you would like a particular image from my videos, give the timestamp for image, and I will upload it to my website and Patreon. Thank you for joining your desert frontiersman Alan for another Southwest story. Check out my large catalog of Southwest videos and playlists on historical tales, legends, lost gold stories, and adult bedtime stories. If you like a certain image from my videos, tell me in comments and give timestamp. Happy trails. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.